Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Victor Pham, Realtor with Keller Williams in Cincinnati. This has been a really crazy market as we all have witnessed over the last couple years. COVID-19 has obviously played a big part in that, and it's not just the buyers and sellers who've been dealing with all this madness, but renters too.
No, we're all in this together.
You had all the unemployment issues which affected people's ability to pay rent, which led to the eviction moratoriums, which made it harder for landlords to get rents paid on their properties. Rental prices seem to be increasing and the availability of them seems to be decreasing, and this is pretty much nationwide, but what does that look like here in Cincinnati? In this video, I'm going to be taking a deep dive to explore and contrast the real estate market here in Cincinnati as far as buying versus renting. I'm going to give you a really good snapshot of what it's like to rent versus what it's like buying in this area. So stick around, you don't want to miss this. So we really have been seeing that surge of millennials come into the house buying market in recent years. These are people born between 1980 and 1996 or current age of 25 to 40. The National Association of Realtors keeps some good data on this. They're saying that millennial buyers ages 22 to 30 years and buyers 31 to 40 years continue to make up the largest share of home buyers at 37%. That's almost half of the market share to millennial buyers, guys. Now, the Generation Z group, on the other hand, these are people born between 1997 and 2012, probably seem to have more people coming into the rental space. People in their early 20s starting to get a feel of life on their own and kind of figure out where they want to be. This is the future generation. Most of these people don't really remember a time without social media or technology, so very reliant on technology in a more faster paced life. Now, Cincinnati has a very robust mixture of food, culture, modernized ways of living, and affordability. These are all things that make Cincinnati attractive, not just to younger renters, but to people of all ages. But we're going to start right there with renting in Cincinnati. Highlight the good and the not so good, and then we'll come back and do the same on what it's like to buy a house in Cincinnati, and hopefully come up with a comparison of the two and see if there are any big differences. Just to give you my personal perspective and experience on renting in Cincinnati, the last place I rented in Cincinnati was a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment in a B-rated neighborhood for $600 a month. The utilities were included. I only paid for electric. Before that, it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in maybe a C-plus neighborhood. I was paying $1,400 a month. Before that, it was a 3-bedroom house in a C neighborhood. That was $900 a month. Before that, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplex in probably a D neighborhood, maybe even F. That was a really rough time for me. That was $550 a month.
You really do be like that sometimes.
What?
I said, you really do be like that sometimes.
And back when I was in college, I was in a studio apartment with just a living room, kitchen, and a bathroom, paying $500 a month. But that was probably in an A-minus neighborhood, a really nice area in northern Kentucky, just a few miles away from Cincinnati. So the range can vary greatly. Personally, I've learned that most times if you can find a private landlord and not a corporation-owned property, the rents are much cheaper. Not always the case, but I've noticed that private owners who interact with their tenants more are usually pretty fair and just want to keep someone in the unit and keep collecting rent. There are so many resources online that you can use to gather data, so trying to find one specific website or one specific source that's going to give you the flawless and accurate data is almost impossible. I have found that usually the local sites and your realtor resources like the National Association of Realtors do keep more up-to-date real-time info, but that's easier said than done when it comes to rentals. The U.S. Census is a federal agency responsible for collecting all the data that it possibly can gather from its citizens. Historically, they have done this by literally knocking on your door and basically asking you for information. Things like how many people are in the household, income, how much you pay for rent, anything that can be used to populate the data of how Americans are living. Now, I know they still do the door-to-door census because the last one was in 2020, and I remember somebody coming up to my door and asking me questions. But I think they have been shifting to try to get more people to give their information online. So the census collects all kinds of data, as you can see here. Trying to see what they have for the rent in 2020. Okay, here it is. Through 2019, they had the average rent in Cincinnati at $738. So some pretty complex information in there, but I found it to be pretty accurate because, like I said, they get it directly from the people. If I search right now for rentals in Cincinnati on Realtor.com, here's what pops up. 675 results. You got apartment, mostly apartments. That's usually what you're probably going to get at the top of the search results. Let's go back up and filter just for the average. Let's go 2 bedrooms. 1 bath and apartment. So still 386 results, $745 a month. Obviously, if you're in a really nice area, more upscale area, your rent's going to be a lot more per month. You can see it's jumping from $745 a month, and this one's $1,900 a month. But in an average area that's not too upscale, not too luxury, that $700 to $800 mark is probably pretty accurate. It's based on what my experience and what I've seen on a regular basis. Single family house rentals have been on fire in recent years, and if you think about it, it's easy to understand why. In a single family rental, you get sort of a privacy that you may not get in an apartment building, especially in a larger apartment complex. It's more exclusive. A lot of times you have off-street parking or a driveway, maybe even a garage. You get the single family experience that home buyers get, except without all the obligation of committing to a 30-year mortgage note. I think single family home renters get a taste of what it's like to experience that life, and it will help them decide if they enjoy it enough to maybe purchase a house down the road. Okay, let's compare that a little to renting an apartment. What do the numbers look like? If we go back to realtor.com, so if we go back up here and we change this filter to single family house, and also let's change the bedrooms to 3-bedroom max, because most people trying to rent a single family house, they're looking for a lot of space. It's like a pretty huge house, $1,900 a month, pretty high. Here's some stuff closer to the medium right here. 3-bedroom house, $1,400 a month, $1,500 a month. A lot closer to the medium. When you see these $2,000, $3,000 a month houses, they're usually in a nicer area, maybe a little bit outside of Cincinnati. You see this is Madeira, Ohio. It's a really nice area. But that $1,500 a month, that's pretty accurate based on what I see on a day-to-day basis and my experience. So the census told us about $800 for the average rental in Cincinnati. We can see on the market now about $750 for an average 2-bedroom apartment. For an average 3-bedroom house, you're looking at more like $1,200, $1,300, depending on the neighborhood. Now going toward the West Coast and the East Coast, we all know it's going to get a lot more expensive renting a place. Cincinnati and the surrounding area is definitely on the lower end of that market. The conveniences of living near Cincinnati is a big thing with residents here. A lot of the feedback I get from clients is about how much more convenient things are when you're closer to the city, especially with the younger clients.
I like to party.
I like to party.
Because there's just so much to do and see. Another big thing about Cincinnati is that it is not overpopulated, only about 300,000 people. So whether you like the single family house or the apartment, you have plenty of options here to fit whatever your budget or style might be. All right, let's shift over to the buying space. Yes, the market is still hot. Homes are still selling like crazy. This data right here is directly from the Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors. Check this out. So this is all the way through 2021. Here's the average sale price of the Cincinnati area for a single family home through 2020, $289,000. 15 days on the market before a house was going under contract. Over 30,000 homes sold. That's insane. Cincinnati is not a large area. So with all the stuff going on, the inventory is a lot lower for buyers right now. Prices are high, but lower than a lot of the other areas in the country. Also, another upside is that buyers have been getting locked into some super low interest rates over the last couple of years. It's insane. I think when it peaked at its lowest back in 2020, people were getting like 2% interest rates, but NerdWallet right now is saying that it's about 3.6, which is still pretty low. That's not a bad interest rate. I think it really comes down to your preparation as a buyer. There are ways to get a house in almost any situation. I've had some buyers get qualified with super low credit scores and some pretty rough situations. But obviously, to get the best rates that people are talking about on the TV, you want to keep your credit score as high as possible. So just like with renting, you have a lot of options of what style of home you want. Closer to downtown, you'll have a lot more condos and properties that fit a buyer more accustomed to the convenient city life. As you move further away from the city in places like Westchester, Ohio, Mason, Fairfield, Liberty Township, it gets a little quieter and a lot more suburban. All right, so what are the differences, if any, between renting and buying? I hear people say sometimes that if you're renting, you're just throwing money away. Why don't you just buy? You're just throwing money in the garbage. Well, I don't believe that to be true because, first of all, you need a place to stay. And not everybody is in a position to buy. So if you can't buy, you have to rent. So renting means you have a roof over your head, which is critical for survival, especially right now if you live in a winter city like Cincinnati. It was like 6 inches of snow a couple days ago. Not only that, if you have a good landlord or property manager, you are not responsible for any maintenance costs or repairs that may come up. That's a big deal for most renters. You know, it's hard enough coming up with the rent, let alone repair costs when a furnace goes out or you need a toilet. So huge benefits to renting. You only have your rent payment to worry about. So I wouldn't call it throwing money away. However, if you're paying rent, Most of the time, you're helping the owner of that property pay down their mortgage on that property. Therefore, you're helping them increase their equity and net worth. And that's probably the biggest difference in renting versus buying to me, the equity. When you own a property, you're building something called equity. And all equity means is just the difference between the value of your home and how much you owe on it. So if you have a property right now you could sell for $100,000, but you have a mortgage of $50,000, that means when you sell, you will collect somewhere around $50,000, depending on closing costs, etc., etc. But you own equity and increase your net worth when you own property. Yes, you have to pay taxes. Yes, you have to fix stuff when it's broken, but having equity in property increases your net worth, which is a huge, huge, huge benefit to being a property owner. When you sell, you can collect a significant amount of money. When you're renting a place, on the other hand, when it's time to move, there's nothing really to collect besides your stuff and maybe a security deposit. If granted, you've taken good care of the property and your property manager is cool enough to give you back 100% of the deposit. And in the past, I have been in situations where I was a renter and I took excellent care of the property. And when I went to go get my deposit back, the owner still came up with some kind of excuse to not give me back 100% of the deposit.
Hey, it's me. Knock, knock. So, you got my money?
So there's some pros and cons to both renting and buying. Really depends on your personal situation and what your needs and goals are. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you have any questions regarding real estate or Cincinnati in general, please feel free to shoot me a text or an email. All my information is in the description below. If you want to stay updated on videos similar to this one, feel free to subscribe. Thanks again. See you in the next video.